Alright, so that was chapter 6. I think we have a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. Before we start, I'd like to remind anyone who's not familiar that this is a re-watch through. So what happens is I've just watched it, I will then watch through it again, and as I watch through it, I'll use keyframes on the screen to describe my thoughts, meaning you'll have to be familiar with the episode to get what I mean. This is not a reaction. And also, real quick, the YouTube things, like it if you like it, share it if you think others would like it, let me know what you thought of this episode in the comment below, because there's a lot to talk about, and subscribe if you want to see more from me. With that being said, let's get into it. Like with anything, we have to start at the beginning, and I have to get this out of the way now because it's going to become a thing, and I don't want complaints in the comments or people to misunderstand what I'm doing. This is the Cinder backstory episode. Now, I have done a video where I gave my version of the Cinder backstory. It was never made to say this is what should happen, and I don't want to spend a video saying I did better here or worse here, or it should have been like this because I did it this way. However, because it is a video that I'm very invested in, I really like that video. Is one of my favorites I've ever made, and I got such positive responses to it, the comparison is automatic in my head. I can't not compare the two. So there will be some comparisons in here, but it won't be just mine's better, go watch it. Please do go watch it and let me know what you think, because now we have a comparison point. But if I do reference that video, look, the card is here, this is what it looks like. It'll be linked in the iCard in the top right. It'll be linked at the end of the episode, and of course you can find it on my channel. So if you want to know what I'm talking about, if I ever do reference it offhand, that's what I'm referencing, but I will still talk about the episode just as an episode. But I just have to get it out of the way because I know that because this isn't scripted and I'm just talking, I'm definitely going to reference it a few times. So we'll go from there. Starting out, it's interesting to have her already scrubbing in a barn. One of the things I approached with mine and what I thought they would do that really would help relate to Cinder is give her loss. We see her through this whole thing just starting out at the bottom. We don't know what happened to her before this. Like, she's a stable hand, perhaps? She's just scrubbing floors. Like, okay, like, I guess she works on a farm or something because she hasn't gone to the hotel yet. So at this point, I don't know, starting with a character already on a down, like she's down from the start, it can work, but I don't feel like we get that loss and pain that's going to drive her to become who she eventually becomes. Now again, not just going to say I did it better or whatever, but it is one of the things I made sure to cover in mine because I feel like the way that they've done this now, no matter how you approach it, if you start with them already down, like they're already scrubbing floors or whatever, the fact that you move them to a new location just being also treated like crap and not liking their life, it doesn't have that loss factor, it doesn't have that initial tragedy. You've just started them out at the slums, A good comparison I think would be like Aladdin. He starts out in the slums and he dreams of bigger things and you're there with him for that dream, but if he's going to turn evil, you wouldn't start him out at the slums unless he wanted to get horrible vengeance. But here, it's not horrible vengeance, it's just her life was hard, and then she went to a place where her life sucked more. Then she wants vengeance, rather than putting her with a big loss at the start where things could have been good and you see who she could have been. And then you lose it down the path of darkness because of things that happened to her. I personally feel that's a better approach for someone like Cinder, who we need to turn into someone who people have criticized a lot. For her actions, you need to find a way to justify them, and making her backstory as tragic as possible and twisted as possible would really deliver on that. And I'll explain through this thing how I don't think they really delivered on that. I don't think her backstory is bad, but I don't think it delivers what it needed to. It's very, I'll save it for the end, but for now, we'll move on. But either way, I'm not a huge fan of this opening. I like that the flashback here matches the one we got in the first episode. It's a good comparison point, but I don't really like that this is where her story starts, with her already scrubbing floors. For me, I think that's a loss. So obviously here, you sort of have to piece together what you think happened. This is an old broken down farm. There's trucks in the background that are moving trucks or something. Or I don't know, did this property get sold or something like that? It really seems to be in Mistral, so she wasn't lying when she said she hailed from Mistral. This definitely seems like Mistral. It seems like Oscar's farm, pretty much, just different location. So I guess that's a starting point. See, immediately this is another reflection of what I was saying. She's treated like crap. She's pushed to the ground by whoever these people are on this farm, and it's okay, so she's always been treated like crap, and she's sort of meek and obviously wants a better life, and then she just goes to a place that treats her like a different kind of crap. It's sort of being trodden on from the start doesn't, to me, necessarily raise the most horrible, vindictive person who wants revenge. I think it's a misstep. I would have liked if her home life was nice, and then something happened and she got taken away, which is Cinderella, right? She had a good life with her father, and then the evil stepmother came into the picture, then he died, then things go crap. You start her out nice, and you start her out with promise of being a good person, and then you strip it away and crush her and break her spirit. And then, well, I mean, that's what I did, but also I think that's how the Cinderella story works if you're trying to turn them evil, rather than them being pure and them standing against all the crap that gets thrown on them and then becoming good by the end. You have them instead break under it and they take the darker path. That makes more sense to me. So with all the kids running through and the sort of farmhand-like experience, and they're all sort of wearing rags. I guess it's an orphanage, that would do, I guess. But see, if you're gonna do an orphanage, I like to see how she got to the orphanage. Was she just raised, and like was she delivered there as a baby, just as an orphan? Because one of the reasons that I was worried about this backstory is I don't like that it has no links to anyone. Like, none of these people are anyone we know. The huntsman we see later, as far as we know, isn't related to anyone. The hotel owner, or whatever else. Like, obviously, if you make them really explicitly related to people and really important, it feels really heavy-handed. Like, what are the chances? But if you do it subtly or something in the background that you can then relate to later, you can make her feel tied in with all this, and it'll feel a little more complete. It's sort of right now, like, I don't see where's the rug they can pull. Where can they show us this whole backstory and then, you know, a season later go, oh, that was so-and-so, or you caused this, or whatever. Like, there's no rug you can pull out of it. It's just she had a crap life and went bad. And while that's not, like, a terrible idea, this is like, you should have seen this seasons ago then. The thing people have complained about, if there's a really big secret here, something to hold out, I don't see where it really is. Now let's talk about the hotel twist. I don't mind it. I always said that if you're going to do Cinderella, you need a twist on it. Don't just make it evil stepmother. You can't be that obvious. So she goes to an orphanage, adopts Cinder, and takes her to her fancy hotel to work as staff and just be, you know, treated like crap because, you know, they're not really an employee, they're like your daughter or whatever. So I get that. It's not a bad version of the twist because you definitely need a twist, although I still think they're very on the nose with everything else. But yeah. Also, it might just be because it's like 3:30 and I waited up all night to watch this, but I'm looking at this on like a 50+ inch TV on 1080p and I actually can't read what the hell that says. So if that tells us where we are, let me know. See, I do think this is Atlas. I do think this is her Atlasian elites thing, people suck thing, because you have the night sky like that and you have that blue ring around the background, so I'm guessing that it is Atlas, but it feels weird that this woman went to Mistral, to an orphanage, to find one random orphan, fly them back across the world to shove them in Atlas. There aren't enough poor orphans down in Mantle? Like, I don't know, but I guess. Also, the cars match the car model that dropped James off in them at the party, so it could be an Atlas car, you know. I find it weird that the big main window in the front there, like the big straight up circle, it actually makes an allusion to Vacuo, like the sword on their logo. It looks a bit like that, but we won't spend any more time on it. This is going to be the longest episode, I just know it. So the two evil stepsisters, very expected. Going through the lobby was interesting. You know, you have the "We Don't Serve Fairness" sign, I guess, you know, good to put those things in there where you can. Is that the reference to that coffee they made a big friggin' deal about online or whatever? Yeah, there's coffee bags in the background, whatever. And the woman getting drunk and the opulence, and I always think that it's interesting. I know RWBY had them, but she wanted to be a huntress, but statues of Grimm that were in the lobby, I won't recap everything I want to talk about because I'll be here forever. But yeah, I always think that, like, you know, the opulent who probably don't have to worry about Grimm would decorate with them, and Ruby's the exception because she wanted to be a huntress, so she has them to, like, kill them and stuff. So yeah, but I thought that's a cool detail. This setting is nice. I like the jazz and I like the sort of chic building design with all the polished gold and brass. It's cool. So I like the setting. So okay, let's talk about two things. We've got to talk about the song. It's okay. It's just listing off horrible things you'd have to do, and this is where I think people are going to have trouble with this, because yes, she's clearly being mistreated, she has to eat scraps and, you know, those kind of things, but it does look like she just has a really crappy, like, job. And I know that's not what they're implying her life's a lot worse than that, but we're not really seeing it. We're seeing the way she lives is crap, and, like, you know, patrons aren't nice, and she has to pick food scraps where she can, but it lacks an amount of suffering that you might not want to see happen to a little girl, but if you're trying to turn her into our main rival bad guy, I'd like to see it. You can't just make her pathetic, you need to give her hate. And I really think that's what's lacked in this, is hate. Even to what she does at the end, I don't feel the hate, I don't see the rage, I don't see the desire. It's just like, oh, I want to be free from this, and I am. But it doesn't have the maniacal break, she doesn't have the snap, you know. she just has the undeciding... we'll get to it when we get to it, but I don't feel like this makes me feel sorry for her. It makes me go, oh, that sucks, and it makes me wish she had a better life, but I don't feel the boiling rage that I would want to see in someone who turns as malicious as she does. So I think that's my problem with this at this point. Yeah, and I'll talk about it a bit more as we go, but I don't hate what they're doing, but I think that I don't know if they pulled their punches or they just didn't try and account for everything she's done, but I think that they, it's like they met the bare minimum. I can buy this as her backstory, but it could have been a lot more. Alright, you're all gonna think I'm really silly for complaining about this. That feather duster, I had so much high hopes for that feather duster. I really did. I knew we'd see a feather duster and I had a lot of high hopes for it, and I'm making more work for myself, but I thought it would be this feather brooch motif. Now, she didn't have it from the beginning, she didn't have it on her original outfit, but she did have it consistently later in the seasons. It would transfer from outfit to outfit, and I wanted her to wear it as a badge, but I really don't see, maybe they're gonna say that's it, but you could have made it more than that. I really wanted it to be explicit. I wanted her to hate that feather duster or something, and be filled with rage, and turn it into an ornament to show how far she'd gotten. And I really thought that's what they were going for a long time with her outfits, and then the only feather duster I really see in this episode is that one, and it's the right shape, because it kind of is, but doesn't have all the colors, doesn't have the detail. We just see it like this, and even if that's what it's meant to be, it feels like a missed opportunity. You could have made more of it and made it more powerful as a symbol. And that's not even something I did in my story. I thought about it later, I thought that would have been really good, but I didn't want to just squash everything in there, but they could have done it here, and I feel like it was a missed opportunity. Alright, now I have to talk about this guy. So he's the Prince Charming, right? Now I don't want them to be gross about it. I don't think he has romantic interest, or I'm meant to think that, but he's the equivalent of, he's the hope, right? He appears as her possible future. You could say fairy godmother, but I don't think that's what it's meant to be. I think it's meant to be, he's the Prince Charming in an ideal world. Not that she wants to marry him, but that he is what she could be. He's brought into her life as the hope, and if she could have stuck with it or whatever, that would have succeeded. Now, I didn't include a Prince Charming in my video because I wanted to recreate the story as if she never got to that point, as if she broke before she met her Prince Charming, and the fact that she never did means she went down a darker path. So there is no Prince Charming in my version. It's like we didn't get that far. Now, here they introduce him early as this huntsman who is her beacon of hope. He doesn't like how she's treated, and they'll develop a rapport and so forth through the thing. I don't hate the idea. Definitely bringing in, flipping the idea of a Prince Charming of no, it's a beacon of hope. It's something you can be. But circumstances don't lead us that way. It's not a bad idea. It's definitely a route that I even considered myself. But I don't know if I'm super happy about the way they handled it. I like the montage we'll get to in a second. But anyway, we'll move on for now. Alright, I need to talk about this. So this is where I think that there's a big failing. The reveal of the semblance, the unlocking of it. I really like that it's non-combat. I want more semblances shown to be unlocked non-combat, not just training or whatever. It's situational, it's emotional, it's angry. But this is just, they're continuing to be crappy to her. It's nothing exceptional. It sucks. And you can hear she's frustrated and they stomp on the thing, and then her hand heats up and she throws it and it makes steam and it makes a big commotion. But I don't think causing a big scene is necessarily what's needed. I crafted into mine, and what I wanted to see, no matter the circumstance, was I wanted it to in line with a big snap. I wanted to tie her burning hands to a burning rage, to really put those things together, and the fact it's just more frustration on the usual sort of doesn't land for me, and nothing really happens, right? She throws the brush and it makes a hug steam and it catches people's attention, and then she just gets criticized for messing up. It doesn't cause anything big to happen. There's no, she doesn't kill anyone with it. She doesn't get horribly punished in an exceptional way. She doesn't, it's just sort of, she got to her breaking point, I guess, but I really wanted to see a big snap. And this is just, I always thought that her burning hand, it should be burning frustration, that burning rage, but we haven't really seen it build. We've just seen her life suck. We haven't seen enough emotion out of her. And I really feel like they toned down Jessica Negri's voice work in this. I don't know whether, I think it might be she struggled to do someone fair amount younger, because we find out she's supposed to be 10 here. When she gets a little older, she gets more lines, so it's a little more believable. I think that could be it, or they just wanted to do like a silent story thing. But if you're gonna do that, we need more close-ups on her face, we need more aggression. We don't just need to going against the floor a bit frustrated, and then they walk Mud in and she does this. It just reminds me of the RWBY chibi clip where RWBY, after Weiss knocks down her cards, RWBY storms Mud into the room into the kitchen that Weiss just cleaned. It really reminded me of that. And if you're making me mentally call back to your comedy series, I'm less to buy into this. I don't like the setup because it just reminds me of that joke. So I'm not as invested in this, feelings of rage here. Now, see, here's a bit of what I mean. Like I said, she didn't get punished exceptionally. Obviously, this is terrible, and I like the shock collar idea. That's really interesting, to give her a nice pendant that looks nice, but it's actually a control device, and they punish her with it. That's great, but you then get the idea that, oh, they've done this to her before. Like, yes, it's horrible, and yes, she is getting horribly punished for it, but it's not... It just doesn't feel huge enough to me. I do like this as a means of control, though. This was a smart idea. I do applaud them for this technique. It's a smart use of dust and usage of the world they have, so I appreciate that. Also, it's weird because the huntsman, I didn't like the way she was treated, but didn't seem to really take notice of her until she did the thing with the brush, the semblance. So it's like, oh, no, she has, it feels like, oh, he recognized she's somewhat special. She unlocked a semblance or did something, so maybe I'll investigate now. So he wasn't a good enough person to step in before, but he is now. I know that's not what they actually are going for, but that's what it feels like with the way you've plotted out your events. But I do like the shock collar thing. That's cool. Okay, so here we get our big payoff to the repeated line of the volume. I like it in theory, but really this shows that they hadn't planned out too much beforehand. Besides, it's going to be a simple Cinderella story because they've put this line in twice this season, and therefore you know it's important. If a line gets repeated over and over, you know it's important, even twice. So, like, oh, this is a really important line to Cinder, where's it going to tie in? And then we saw a tease of a backstory in episode 1, oh, it's going to be something from a backstory. These are easy assumptions. But the fact it's so important, it seems to be this huge line that she was forced to say, being subservient the first time, and now she uses it as a line to, like, please Salem because she knows that's what people want to control you, want you to say, that kind of thing. She's pulling from her history, but obviously it hurts to do that. I would really have liked this line to be in other seasons then. Obviously you can't go back and do that, but it's one of those things where, like, if you want to put in something this impactful, you want to seed it earlier. It's one of those things where RWBY suffers from a lot, where things only matter in the season they're in. Like, characters introduced in a season will die in that season. It's rare to get cross-season things. So even if, she couldn't have done it in 6 because she was mostly away from Salem, but, like, I wish we had have had this built up to for a longer time than just twice at the beginning of the season or early, and then it's in her backstory here, and we've never seen it before. It's not that it doesn't have punch, it's that it loses a lot of its possible punch, and that's just an unfortunate thing of not having it planned out before. It feels like the plan really was, we'll just do a version of the Cinderella story and figure it out. Now, I don't want to be too critical, but you have a long time to write these things, and when the planning stages, you have a long time to write them. And I feel like there was a better way to do a lot of this. And I'm being more critical than usual because this was an episode they really had to nail, if nothing else. I really think this was a very important episode, and I don't know if it really got to what it could be. I'm so tempted to say how long it took me to write my versions of the backstory, but I feel like doing it would be so rude. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to say I can do it better, but I didn't spend that much time on mine, and I feel like I got more bases covered. Unless this is going to expand and we'll get another bit, but I don't know. I don't think we will. What I'll say is this. I would like a second part, and I don't know if we have time for it. I would like a second half of this where we get the Salem side of things to really perhaps nail home how she got to how she is. If they do that, I will be a lot happier with this. I didn't include that in my part because I feel like I crammed more of those plot points into my story. With this one, if you're taking a more expanded route, which they kind of are, they're taking a lot more time with their steps. Even though it doesn't take up that much time in the episode, like, the pacing is slower. If you're gonna do a second half where we see what happens once she leaves and gets to Salem, I think that would really help this so far. So this I do like the callback to her stealing things. Her conversation with Emerald, she's known her share of liars and thieves, and this is how you thieve, and to have some thieving in her background, something to claim as hers to make her happy, something of status is commendable. I like that inclusion for her backstory. That's quite nice. So I want to commend this montage in the way it's put together. One of the things I think really helps is before it starts, they give you a time frame. They say, how old are you? 10. Okay, so there's a solid bit of time. We have 7 years to train you. So we can tell that this is taking place over approximately that time. It doesn't obviously seem to get to fruition. And a lot of the cuts that they do through the montage are pretty good, showing her age up a little and her expression change and that. I do think it's pretty well done. So I do think it's one of the better montages they've done in terms of like something that actually tells your story along the way. You do get the impression of time changing. You do see improvements in her style. Also, you have things like here with her doing double swords, training to do dual wielding, which is something she does later, which is great. And obviously her swords are like his sword, which is great. We didn't see any archery, and I'm upset about that. It was something that I went back and made sure to include in mine. I didn't have it in my original draft. I went back because I wanted to put it in there. It really seems to be a base for the character. It was something that they go back to, and it's something that they brought back for the fight at Amity, and I really appreciated it. I wanted to see the start of an archery background for some reason, whatever it may be. So that is one of the things they didn't cover that I'm a bit upset about, but I guess you can't have everything. But the montage itself is well crafted. Some of the cuts are a little janky with some people appearing that weren't necessary. You could have had them move into frame smoothly when they were going through those doors and that. You had people just appear as crowd members to show time changing. You could have had them walk into the scene and so forth, but anyway. Overall, it's pretty good. See, again, it's not the same feather duster. Oh, it was right there, come on. It was so close, you almost had it. Just make it peacock feathers like her brooch thing. Yeah. Or peacock sort of feathers, whatever, that colour. And yeah, I do like the holding the thing behind her back though, that's cool. Like a cool little visual of remembering that threat is there. So, can I just say, I really like this stage of Cinder's design, especially her hair. There's better shots of it close up, but this is a good comparison because she's modeling it like him, right? She has length at the back, but she's put the ponytail up. It's better than the two bun things, whatever you call it, she was doing when she was younger, but again, that sort of gives you a little kid feel, I guess. And it's, we've seen her hair change a fair few times in the show. I really like this one. This, like, Cinder at, he says in a few years you won't do the permission, so we'll take that as a few means too and go 15. 15-year-old Cinder here, I love this model design for her hair and everything. I think it's really cool. So that's really cool. So, this may be a point of contention. You might be able to see it in the subtitles earlier, but it's never referenced until here in the show that her name is actually Cinder. I'm fine with that. I always said when I made mine and all through, it's okay if her name is actually Cinder. People have like color and strange based names in this show a lot, and Cinder obviously gives you impressions of red and fire and all that. I don't mind that her name is actually Cinder. It could have been interesting if it was something else. Like, it would have been fun to just slip in a different name here and you know who they're talking about because so and so has a weapon. But also, this is the turn I'm really not big on. We'll see if I like it more the second time, but from here I think this gets pretty weak in terms of execution, but we'll move on. So if you're doing the full Cinderella references, you're probably going to use Midnight. It was something I didn't choose to use, but I can see why they did. And you have the clock jump from about 22 to about 3 to 4-4-3. And I get it, the countdown. You want, do the countdown to midnight, and obviously things go bad at midnight rather than going well. It's like, the change. And he's going to come in, and then the few minutes he takes going through the place will account to about midnight. I get that. I don't like that we skipped this 20 minutes, though. I want to see what happened. Mom, she has a weapon. They run back there. 20 minutes pass, and then we hear crashing, and she's attacking the mother. So it took 20 minutes for this argument to happen, and then she murdered them. It feels weird. Like, I don't know. I would have... The time jump seems too long. 15 minutes or whatever. But I guess that's a nitpick. I don't know if that's a nitpick or not. I would have liked to see the break. I want to see what happened. This is one of the things I wish they didn't skip over artistically or whatever. You want to see where she flips. We sort of lose that. We lose that breaking point. Also, I will say, look at the statue of the Grimm down on the mantelpiece there, the long dragon. It's very much like the one that attacked the ship, right? But in like a full-out form with the wings out already. It's got the long, I guess mustache is the wrong word, but you know what I mean? The long trails from the the snout, like the Chinese dragons and the one on the boat head. It's really cool. Not one you see referenced much, especially with the full wing, so that's cool. So, there's things I like and don't like. I like the fact we come in on the dead sisters, because brutally killing kids on screen is a bit rough no matter how bad they are, so cutting into them already being dead makes sense. Her powering through the pain here is pretty cool. I like that as a concept, like she completely bears it even though it hurts so much. What I don't like is her line, you know, without you I'm nothing, but because of you I am everything. That seems like a very basic phrase flip. What's up is down, what's left is right, you know, because of nothing I am everything. Like, it doesn't really mean that much. It doesn't seem that impactful to Cinder. Like, I'm everything I am now because of what you did, or I will take everything I want, or something. Like, it's sort of a bit lame, and I feel like we really didn't get that punch. Her choking her off the ground is interesting, you know, like, I made a comment about where her strength came from when I did mine, and I guess they could be implying it here, that all of her years of work, plus the training she did with the huntsman, like, you know, it made her strong, but I think holding someone pretty much off the ground one-handed is a bit much. And yeah, I don't know. This is where, like I said, it starts getting a bit weak in here. Like, the line's a bit generic. I don't really like the way she does the kill. The turn seems a little wonky and not as, you know, it's one of the reasons that, again, I'll reference my video, not that I think it's the right way to do it or whatever, but it's one of the reasons that when I did her turn, I actually kept her silent. I didn't have her give a line, I just had her be silent and scary. And I think that it probably would have worked better, because this cheesy line takes away from it for me, because I know they introduced the because of you, without you I am nothing. They introduced that just to reuse it. They introduced it at the start of 8, then they repeated it later, so it's definitely going to be important. Oh, it's a backstory line, they put it in the backstory, and then this is the flip of it at the end. I really don't like it. I think it's because we need her to say something cool. And this is a line I guess they can bring back. She might flip it on Salem later or something, but I don't know. I feel like it missed the mark for me personally, and I'm just gonna be honest. Also, yeah, I'll tack on, I don't like the kill. She just crushed her neck. Like, she didn't burn her with her hands or stab her with a sword. There was no callback to any way she's killed anyone else later. There's no, like, you know, you didn't have to make it 1-for-1. She doesn't have to be kneeling, facing away from her and get a spear through her back, but you could have done something. Yeah, you don't want to be too referential and too heavy on it, but also it's just like, she just crushed her neck with a hand. Like, that feels how Hazel would kill someone he doesn't care about. You know, put that sword through a gut or something. It's just a bit, For killing the person who's tormented you for your life, it's a bit sort of crap. Like, it's a bit, it's not dramatic enough, it's not bloody enough, it's more like a cold, quick way to do it. I don't think she's taking satisfaction in that kill too much. It's just, yeah, I'm gonna watch you choke, crush down the side, so like, through the stomach, or look into my eyes as I kill you, sort of thing. Like, and again, you're trying to flip her pretty dark, and I know she hasn't totally flipped yet because she has the huntsman fight coming, but yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like there was missed opportunities here for something more. I do like the bell tolling though, like, you know, it's cool in the background with the hitting midnight. Yeah, I mean, that's cool. So, because we didn't see her really have her flip, when she gave this line, the I don't have to run now, and she looks like a bit warped and a sort of a weird smile, like, I thought, okay, we're doing manic, right? We're doing like manic break, she's going a bit crazy. I don't have to run now, like, you know, something to snap, but she sort of then leans back because she gets more determined for the fight with him, so we sort of lose that. Like, she doesn't go manic mind break sort of flipping out, she sort of half does it, and I don't really, you know, I don't think that nails it, because I wanted to see her dark turn, and the fact that she doesn't go dark turn, she kills them and it's like, oh, everything will be fine now, right? That's sort of a crazy response. I'm like, okay, let's do that, but then it doesn't really stick to that either. So, I don't know, I feel like I'm being so harsh, and I don't mean to be. I think this is an episode people have been waiting for since Cinder's introduction, and I just don't know if it's all it could be. Okay, so here we get our actual flip, where she goes from, I don't have to run now, hopeful, to realizing she's about to fight, and she angers up, and then I'm like, okay, so this is where she goes dark. it just lacks that punch, man. Also, the huntsman's name is Rhodes. It's never said in the show, but it's in the subtitles. Rhodes. I don't know off the top of my head if that's a reference. It probably is. Some author or some character or something, whatever. So she's about to fight Rhodes. I know she's meant to be probably naturally gifted and good, but it's one of those things where I don't think they had the budget and the time for a massive fight, and this fight's a little underwhelming. But we'll look at it as we go through. But yeah, this is her dark flip. This is her turn where she actually goes snarling and evil, because she realizes that he's not on her side. He's going to continue to do his job because she murdered people, so he has to bring her in or whatever, so the fight's happening. So yeah. Alright, but I will give a big compliment here. I'm in the middle of, or I've planned for a long time to make a video talking about semblances and stuff. He can like coat his skin in metal. That's awesome. That was actually one of the things I was going to suggest as a semblance idea for people to use. It's like I talked about when I did my raid on Schnee Manor video, Colossus and that in Xavier's school. Like, it's very similar to that. I like it. And I like her hard counter to it. It's really good. Like, now you have a good use of her putting a semblance to good use in an evil fashion. He coats himself in metal, superheat the metal. Yeah, that's really cool. So here, I definitely, I flip what I was saying. This is a big compliment. I love this moment. It's a cool semblance. You can immediately understand what it does. It's a new type of semblance we haven't really seen before. And it's Cinder getting her first good counter using her semblance to her advantage. So this is a real positive, this moment here. So excellent job. So here's another moment they needed to nail. First of all, I'll say she cracked his aura super easy. I know he used his semblance. We'll hand wave it because they had to get to this point. Then he cracks hers back, so she's totally not a threat. But he's supposed to be a huntsman. He puts his weapons down and walks up to her, and he's going to pat her on the head like a comforting gesture, and she just kills him. So, I get it. Like, you want to do he really meant well, and he wishes he'd done better, and he was a fatherly figure, and he cares for her, really. But she's gone down this dark path, so now she just stabs him and is, hard done by for it and remorseless. And yeah, I don't know. It has all the earmarks, all the potential to really be something, but something here doesn't land for me. I think it's that the music keeps going too long. We don't get like a dropout. We get it dropped out in a second later. Yeah, so here's another thing. So after he pats her on the head, she has like an eyes shaking, oh my god moment, like when she sinks in what she's done. But then she just has resolve and stands up. It's not as dark as it could have been. It feels a bit shaky. And here's another thing I didn't like is she takes off her necklace here, right? And it's got the little yellow diamond thing on it. It should have been bigger and slightly different color, even if it does what it does, because it matches exactly to the diamond that's on that brooch symbol. It should have been her necklace combined with the feathers of the feather duster, and she turned it into jewelry to decorate herself with, to show how far she's come. And they'll say now that, oh, that's what it's referencing, right? It's the same shape, the stone's a different color, and the feathers do represent the feather duster. But it feels more like they design these things around that, rather than turning these things into that, so that we actually have that for the story. Just another missed thing. I don't know. It's one of those, when you see something in front of you and you're like, this was 75% great, but you missed this other bit that you're either going to say was meant to be there, or you're trying to imply it but you don't want to be as obvious, but because you're not being as blatant about it, it feels like you actually missed what could be an impactful step. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else, but it's just what I think looking at this. But we have to move on. There is more episode. The last thing I'll quickly say is I do like the tear, a mixture of sadness and hope, looking at the moon, freedom, but yeah. And the tear hard cut to actual Cinder laying down, seeing that change. It's a good way to do it. It's a good use of your camera and cuts, but yeah, I just don't know if it landed, man. I'll talk more about it in the final thoughts, I think. We'll move on to the rest of the episode. Okay, so this whole scene, I do like Cinder being a little scared or upset that she was brought back here. Emerald's concern feels pretty real. This bed and room is ridiculous with this, like, sacrificial altar looking thing. Also, I'm going to talk about this at the end, because if you stuck through the credits, you saw the thing I saw. Also, the Mercury thing. A lot of people have speculated that he'll be on the generals now, because, he's been promoted, sort of thing. And that's confirmed here. It's, you sort of get that from the intro where he's alongside the others in the fire, whereas Emerald isn't, leading up to Salem. So yeah, that's an interesting mix. I think it's going to be bad news for anyone that really likes Emerald and Mercury together as a pair, but I do think it could lead to that either Emerald defecting or Emerald and Cinder running away or whatever, something like that, because that split seems more and more serious there. I don't know what Mercury's done to prove himself so good, so it's good enough to be among that council, but we'll see. I do like the continuing, I don't like it. I think it's interesting, the continued powerlessness of Cinder as she's losing minions, like her realization that she can't order him around anymore. She seems to be losing things again. So that can play into that backstory of, one of the things that I wanted to address, one of the things that I think the backstory needs to address a lot is that I think it missed in this occasion is loss, is having things so that you lose them and being trodden down, so that now when she has things again like power and minions and people to follow her, that losing them again it scares her of heading back down that path of losing everything again. So then you rally against it incredibly hard with rage and fervor. But I'm not really getting that, even though that seems to be sort of what they're implying, but we'll see how it develops. But anyway, interesting stuff. Mercury actually has speaking lines, which are good. So yeah, they're not here to just stand around, which is nice. So let's talk about this. I've seen criticism of Oz that he's letting Oscar take this beating, so at least they're sort of addressing it, that Oscar feels it's better he's there because Hazel holds back slightly because it's not Oz. Sure, I guess. The idea that he wants, that while he's inside, he might as well take advantage and try and weasel his way in. This could work if he starts trying to play along with Salem and feed into that motherly instinct and try and get her on side and pretend to be against Oz and get on her side that way to try and weasel his way in. That could be something if they want to continue down that route, but he might, and that could be really cool if he has to pretend to be against Team RWBY and to pretend to have flipped and they don't know that it's a fake. That could be really cool, because people have talked about Oscar flipping before, like, Salem promises him something or whatever, promises him to get Oz out or whatever and make him flip. I do like the idea of it's not that, it's a pretend flip where he plays along with those ideas, but actually he's just trying to get an opening from the inside when the time is right, sort of thing. But we'll see. But yeah, even Oz agrees, saying perhaps he had to be presented with an opportunity. So if he does ingratiate himself with Salem, pretending to be on her side and to have flipped, that could be something. I would like to see that storyline if they're going to do it. It would make this more interesting. Or at least what I mean is, it's not that it's not interesting now, but a more interesting thread to weave through this than just Oscar is the prisoner getting beaten up, the resident punching bag again to be rescued. It would be cool if Oscar takes some initiative here and gets something cool going. That'd be nice. Man, maybe this doesn't help my enjoyment of this episode, but I'm losing hope for Hazel. I made a crazy theory that Hazel still works for Oz and that this scene would be the reveal, and it could be crazy. Obviously, I made that before you knew this episode was coming, and I made it purposely because I wanted to get it out before we saw this scene continue, because I didn't think it would actually happen. It was just a crazy what if, and the fact that it's not happening isn't surprising, but the fact that it's still just this and it's no much deeper than she can't be stopped, so I'll work with her. And even he's sort of bringing up, but yeah, you're hurting kids and stuff, but it's I'm really losing hope for how shallow Hazel is. I get his rage and anger, but I don't get his choices. Like, if you're him, wouldn't you be giving up instead? You wouldn't work for Salem and actively do things for her. You'd just, I don't know, become a hermit, move to the middle of nowhere and wait to die, or just live out your life making no big impact, have lost hope. It's so different to actively work with her, and it's really hurting who's supposed to be an imposing figure and who seems so intelligent and so much promise. He feels more like a dumb brute every time, because they're just, this is again where I'm like, this is almost another backstory opportunity, right? Like, it's not a flashback, but you have literally Oz questioning him about his motivations, and they don't seem that much stronger, really, which is disappointing. So I will say it's an interesting approach that, so you have Hazel saying, you send kids to their death, that makes you bad. And then he's saying, well, we have to try. And then he's like, well, she's a force of nature, you can't stop her. And he's like, well, we can stop her because she can be fought. She's not a force of nature. There is a pushback there. And, I guess you'd call it a stalemate, but Hazel really seems quite wrong. And then, or at least less justified in his approach, Salem comes in, and Salem is awesome, and this frame is awesome, and I love Salem. But I do like Oz's approach that he might just reveal what would happen if she gets the relic. See, that's a good trump card. That's something you can play off Hazel and them to be like, hey, you do realize if this happens, like, the world ends. Like, that's it. Like, there's nothing else. It's not just, oh, it's under Salem. Like, literally, we get wiped from existence. That, I mean, I understand, they really might try and flip Hazel. And it feels, because his motivation is weak, and he doesn't have much, what's the phrase? He doesn't feel as justified in what he's doing. He doesn't have much conviction, even though he pretends to. If you then present him with, well, you're actually going to kill everybody. I guess they might use that to try and flip him, but it's not going to feel like a decent flip if they do it. I have another crazy Hazel theory that I was thinking about not putting out because I just put out one and it feels like I'm grabbing at straws, like, hey, another Hazel theory. But I have one that could make this kind of crazy, but maybe I'll think about putting it out. But that's a different idea. I'm just talking about this video because this part concerns Hazel, and I'm like, you're not really capitalizing on his backstory. There isn't a twist we don't know so far. There isn't something secret here. So instead, your players, you're gonna have Oz or Oscar reveal what would happen if she got all 4 relics, and maybe that'll flip some people who, you know, might be on Salem's side but don't literally want the world in existence to end. It's a big difference. So we'll see, I guess. Good camera work and editing here. I love the match cut. Salem looks awesome. Putting her in the throne front on looks cool. Pretty much everything we're going to see from here looks pretty cool. Yeah, great use of the camera work. Great use of all of this. So the technicals over this sequence are pretty great. Just real quick, just 2 seconds. Couldn't you see if that was the feather duster she was wearing and that diamond was the necklace pendant she was wearing, how impactful this shot would have been? Sweeping back around to her and seeing it on her chest in front of Salem while she has her head bowed again. This could have been... It's just... Sometimes seeing the great potential of things is more frustrating than something being bad. If something's bad, it's just bad or whatever. When something is so close to being really good, but it just misses those last few steps, it can be infuriating. And I feel like those are little things that really, those little extras that really would have, you know, put a polish on the scene and put a polish on the episode and capitalized, especially being in this episode, right, with the backstory. Anyway, we'll get on to the big thing happening. Alright, I'm gonna have to do a few little stops through this bit, I think, because it's important. So I like the one-to-one of her getting tortured in a different way. It's with the Grim Arm, and she can't take that off like she could the necklace, you know? But it's being in that position again, powerless, being punished, and then we'll see Salem's flip on it. Things I like. I like that the Grim isn't taking control of her, because I hate that idea. It's just a thing I've always hated, and I don't... People now talking about she's going to become the next Hound. I hate that too. It's its own video sort of thing if I go into it, if they do or don't do it, and why I dislike it so much. But I do like it as a punishment method. Like, it just burns from the inside, and that is incredibly painful, and it's a recreation of her position, where you put her in a position where she hasn't just, you know, it's not just, she thought she went up in the world, she thought she made something of herself, but actually she's back to where she started, which is what they implied through this whole volume, from her doing her head kneeling and without nothing, head kneeling, you know what I mean, head down kneeling things, and even before the backstory, like, you could see that's what they were setting up. So I do like that. Hey, see, this is what I mean. Salem being crafty. At least Salem is still somewhat crafty. I won't go into it all right now, but yeah, you can see her flipping of this, where Cinder felt resentment and hate towards her captors because they were holding her down. Salem is flipping it, being like, oh no, it's my fault, actually. Like, she's still punishing her here, but she'll flip to be, it's my fault, I should have done this and this, and, you know, and trying to reel her back under her spell sort of thing, of being like, oh no, it was my fault, my mistake, here, actually do this thing, which is something I need done anyway, but no, you're totally right, see, you're justified, go do the thing. And we'll see if Cinder falls. Well, I mean, falls for it in total. We'll see what her actual responses are in private, kind of thing. So, here's where I get worried, and here's where I get a bit, saddened or curious, perhaps. So we have her being like, we have Salem saying, you know, you deserve so much more, I should have lifted you up, and you intercut that with the Hound approaching, which does feel like they're suggesting you'll become the next Hound. Like, look what it could be. I'm holding you back. You're, you know, what you could have been, Hound, you know. Phrase about what you could be, Hound. Talk about your potential, Hound. I should do more for you, Hound. Like, the camera work, you can be suggesting that pretty easily. And, they're so close here and she's kind of disgusted by it. It does lean into that idea, and like I said, I hate that idea. But anyway, that aside, you also have her going to break out Watts. Now, it's always funny because she doesn't like Watts, but I'm not going to go into my video again, this isn't the point of this, but if you saw the title of that, you've seen the thumbnail, I tied them together, and there was a scene I said you needed to end this thing, to end the story that I told, where you need her to run into Watts, and he'd be very important to that. And here you have her being sent on a mission to get Watts, so I can't help it in the back of my head. It's like the exact thing you said that they needed to do if they did it that way, but they didn't do it that way, so I'm wondering what a confrontation with Watts and Cinder will go down like. I can't see Watts' tie into her backstory there, the way that I tried to do it for my one, because it's all in that video. But my point is, so her mission is to go get Watts because Watts can lead her to Penny, and then she can take the powers from Penny. It is an interesting twist if they're going to hack Penny and instead offer her up for Cinder to kill her to get the powers. That is a different twist than just hacking her to go to the vault. I don't know if that'll happen. Obviously, you had Penny saying, "Oh no, I have to go to the vault," real quickly before she turned off. And, I guess that's the programming he was told to put in her anyway. But if it is to lead her like a lamb to the slaughter and Cinder can just kill her and take the powers, that would be pretty interesting. But I don't think they'll do it that way. It's very cold if they do. And we'll see in a second. I'll try something here, so we'll cut to that. Okay, so here's where dramatic pauses suck. But you can see where they use them for storytelling. He says, "We'll bring about the end for all of you." And Hazel slams him to the floor and lifts him up for Salem. And, I guess the threat is stop talking. And she's like, "You're too late." But literally just say the next bit. Say, if you do that, you'll only bring out the end for all of you. Bring the relics together will end the world. And just spit that out. If you, it might kill you. You might get destroyed to do it. But if you spitting that idea out amongst them, because they clearly don't all know that, it would probably change things if they did, especially for people like Mercury, who's been told that he'll be top dog in her new world as far as we know. We have Cinder, who probably doesn't want the world to end because she wants her own stuff. We have Hazel, who is just shaky anyway. Tyrion won't care. But yeah, again, Emerald will probably care. If you spat that out now, if you got that into the open right here, if you just said the next couple words, and I get, there's a threat that he shouldn't, and he got hurt, and he's being directly threatened here, and all of that, but it's just I would have actually been really interested to see the version of this where he spat that out. Yeah, I was right, they do look silly all stacked up on that bike. Unavoidable. I do like in the flying, you saw Winter getting legitimately annoyed that they were referring to Penny as a piece of broken equipment and junk and whatever else. Getting annoyed that they're being bitchy anyway, because your Atlas elites act like it, but also you could see it was getting to her because Penny was her friend and means so much to her, so at least we're still getting some of that. Okay, so let's talk about this. There was lots of speculation about what the Grim River would be used for. A lot of people thought it will flood into the crater. I saw versions where it would flood into the crater and everyone in there would be turned into Grim monsters or versions of Grim to flood the land, or it would just kill everyone. I had a version where you turned the crater into a new pool of destruction almost at the top of the world for a new base. I saw other versions of it. We talked about how it'll probably spawn the Grim contest winner, spawn a mini-boss they have to fight. I thought its big worm form could tear through the city. Lots of cool things. The idea of a Grim geyser that just shoots up to attack Atlas from beneath. I don't know, man. It's interesting concept. It's a cool in theory concept, but I don't know. It just rains against the shields until it can get a crack on them, and then it puts sentinels in because they can burrow and take down the shields, I guess. But it feels so this is what we were waiting for. This to work its way there. That's what Salem was waiting for, I guess. It's not that it isn't interesting, and it's not that it isn't scary, and it's not that it isn't out of left field. It's just I don't know, this feels like a weird setup, but I mean, by the end of the episode we'll see where we get to, and that's certainly an interesting place to be. It'll certainly change things moving forward. But yeah, the Grim geyser was not one that I don't think anyone saw coming, so it's interesting. It would have made more sense to me if it went straight up into the military base underneath and started shattering through that and then crawled out. But yeah, so I always appreciate when you can make your title mean more than one thing, and RWBY actually does this a lot. I feel like someone puts in a lot of work on that, and it's one of the unsung things. you'll get I can't think of one off the top of my head, but they've done it a lot of times where a title will relate to at least like 2 storylines in there, and you have the midnight thing with Cinder's backstory, but also it's time, like it struck midnight, here we go, time's up, we're doing this now. So yeah, it's kind of cool. And also Salem just looks fantastic here, so what can I say? Yeah, it's one of the coolest shots of the episode. So I hate being that person, but what is that air fleet doing? Like, the whale is over this side, guys. Like, nothing as it came in. Nothing. Like, I know that they're not all back there. They're actually in a ring around it. But the ones facing it haven't moved. No one did anything. Like, they shot at a couple sentinels around the base, but the freaking whale came in and landed. You're not peppering it with fire. You're not shooting it. That feels so weak. Like, you're here to protect the city. That's your objective and your goal. So, why aren't you doing that? Like, the air fleet already looks smaller than it used to be, and whatever, but yeah, the fact that they're not doing anything feels super weird. And, that's not a nitpick when you show me this shot. Like, why aren't there raining lasers down on the whale? It's clearly not a good whale. It's not here for good things. Alright, I guess this will be final thoughts. I've sort of thought about it for a second. I didn't need to cover that, the whale lands, opens its mouth, and the Grim Goop flies out or rolls out, and Grim spawn from it. But I'm gonna put up this card, because it's right at the end here. What's with the statue? Like, okay, so in the other art, you will see that they oftentimes use characters as reference size, right? So you have little rubies throughout a thing, or in this time you have little cinders throughout a thing, to give you like a size perspective. You take their height, and it gives you an idea of how tall everything is around the place. What is with this statue? I was like, is it, like, it's clearly RWBY from, season 4 and 5 with the puffy sleeves. I originally thought it was what do you call it, Summer. I was like, oh my god, it's Summer, but it's not. It's clearly RWBY from that season. So, because she's got the brooch up by the face and everything. Because yeah, she has the RWBY haircut with the spikes. She has the brooch up near the face on the cloak. She has the puffy sleeves that go into the armbands and the gun belt and the belted boots. It's RWBY from that season. So why is this in the concept art? Because it's not here for scale. So was it supposed to be that, like, in Cinder's room on the ship that she didn't know she had a monument to RWBY because she friggin' hates her or something? I don't know, it's really weird that it's here. Initially I thought it was because Summer, and I was like, oh, theory time, like, why is there a statue of Summer on it? It's not though. So, I don't know, man. It's an interesting choice. Just a weird art thing I'll mention. But now on to actual final thoughts. Let's talk about the episode. Okay, so when I talked about episode 2, I said I wasn't happy with it. I didn't like it. It didn't do it for me. This episode, what I'm going to say is, it's not bad. It's not a bad episode. It's not that it didn't perform well. It's not that it didn't deliver on some lines. It's not that it didn't deliver on anything. It's just like, it didn't fail in its execution. But unfortunately, this is one of those hallmark episodes, those monumental episodes that people have been talking about forever. And those episodes can't just be okay. They need to be exceptional. They need to be big. This was your chance to stick the landing for a character that not only has divided fans for a long time, some people really hate her, but if you did it right and you justified who she was, or you showed a new angle to her to get people to sympathize with her, or, that kind of thing, you really could have turned people around. You really could have brought people around on this character, and then the people who liked her or didn't have a problem with her would just continue to do that. It would be the same. I don't think they stuck that landing. I don't think that they really nailed what this could have been. It's not what it is bad, it's what it could have been was great. And this isn't a great episode. It's not, it's not winning any medals. It's just an episode, and it's okay. And like the Cinder backstory, it's a struggle because every version of the Cinder backstory I've seen, I've read some, I've looked at some, I've made one, you struggle because you have that Cinderella framework. You want to work within that, and you want it to be sort of the Disney one because you want people to understand your reference, right? You don't want to go super obscure with all the other versions of it. So you have your Disney framework story that everyone knows from their childhood, and you have that to work within, and that's pretty challenging. Like, how do I make this interesting? How do I make it different? And there's little sparks of them doing that. the hotel setting was interesting. The flipping of the Prince Charming character into a support character for a promising future is, again, one of the obvious ways to use him that's slightly different, but it's good. It's not just one for one. It's not some guy she loved or something. You know, that's a really good. But like the stepmother was pretty much what you expect. Two stepdaughters, what you expect. She just had hard chores. Like, it wasn't that bad. Like, she had the necklace and she was tormented, and yeah, but you didn't see a whole lot of suffering outside of when she just got really angry. The thing that really failed for me were her switches. Like, were moments when she would flip, when she got really angry, or when her semblance unlocked, or when she killed Rhodes. They just weren't there for me. They just didn't feel like they delivered on what could have been something huge. I feel that this episode is going to keep everything the same way it was. You know, we didn't really learn anything. It's going to keep the status quo. It's going to keep the people that hate Cinder hating her. It's going to keep people that are fine with her, because this didn't really give us anything huge. Didn't give us any big revelations, and it missed out on some of those little bits of polish I said, like turning her necklace and the feather duster into her brooch would have been fantastic. I know that's probably what they're saying they're alluding to now, and I think that's what they've always alluded to with the feather duster bit, but you could have just done that in the show, and that would have just added a little bit of sheen to it to make it feel a bit more complete. And there weren't many tangents left to continue on. There weren't too many plot threads of like, oh, you know, why she was at an orphanage or whatever, right? Why was she there? What happened to her parents? Like, you could have done things there and tied them in later, and oh, so-and-so is the reason she was in an orphanage, or do you know that the person at the orphanage was actually so-and-so's parent, or you didn't have a thing where, oh, that guy who was mean to her was also, I don't know, you could do a lot. Like, they didn't leave any dangling thread that they can sort of zing you with later, or not ones that were very obvious, not ones that you could easily see. And if they're not obvious and you can't easily see them, it means that even if they do it later, a lot of people are going to miss it. They'll be like, who was that again? Oh, it was that one guy in the hat in the background I didn't notice, or something. You know, so it feels a bit disconnected. It feels like they said, let's just do a version of the Cinderella story, and, you know, you might feel bad for Cinder, you might not, because you're supposed to feel bad for her anyway, because she's hard done by, and then that makes Cinder. And you missed out on covering a lot of things that I really personally wanted covered. And again, when I did mine, I covered a lot of things I wanted to see, because I think they're things that would really help. I wanted to see the killer rage. I wanted to see someone broken. I wanted to see references to a lot of the things she did. So I purposely put in references to things she's done through the show and tried to give them a background. I did a whole section on why she wears high heels all the time, and why she can do like backflips in high heels. It sounds dumb. You don't have to cover it, right? Anime, fine. Weiss does it. It's cool. But I like that you could have given her a base for that. You could have woven in just one little plot thread, like one little story element that was like, oh, that's why. And they even missed some that I thought were super obvious that most people I've seen have used, like, why wasn't she constantly fixing clothes and things for her, for the hotel even, or for her stepsisters or whatever? For the hotel works better. I thought it had a better setup. She does all the repairs, right? Because that's why she can sew and does all the dust with the sewing into the clothes thing. Easy reference, and they didn't do it. The archery never came up, but it seems like that's her base thing, and the sword sort of came second. Her go-to was like archery to start with, so they didn't give a base for that. Just lots of things, you know, and her first use of her semblance, or on screen, or her big impact with her semblance, wasn't super overwhelming. It's not that what they did was bad, it's just, it felt very easy. It felt like if you gave pretty much anyone the backstory and said, here's Cinder, she's based off Cinderella, write a version of the Cinderella backstory in RWBY, and you just wrote one out, that's what you come up with, something like that. Twist it a little bit so it's not one for one, so you put the hotel setting and stuff in. But the opening was kind of meh, with just her at the orphanage. You didn't have references to all these things we've seen. There were good sparks. Like, again, I liked her using her semblance on the guy's throat to melt through the metal shield. That's cool. Good stuff. I liked the use of the shock necklace. I thought that was a cool element for them to put in to control her. Good stuff. I liked the setting. I liked the hotel. Good stuff. I liked the Cinder designs, especially, like I said, the older one, the like 15-year-old one. Really cool. I like the hair, I like the way she's presented. It's really interesting. But I didn't like so much else of it. I didn't really... Well, it's not that I didn't like it. I wasn't blown away. I was waiting for them to capitalize, and I didn't see it capitalized. Like I said, I think that you could save this with a second half. I want to see what happened to that Cinder. If that wasn't that strong, then, knock it out of the park with the second half. Show us how she found Salem, what she was promised, how she was raised, how she was taught, where did she learn her other skills, and, then I'd be more on board with it. But yeah, it doesn't impress. It's fine. And I'm disappointed that I come away from this saying it's fine, but it doesn't impress. So, that's one of those things where I can't say that and not make it sound like a downer. It's not a downer. This is a fine episode. This was a good episode. It was enjoyable. I was glued to the screen the entire time. But when the Cinder backstory isn't capitalized on, the Hazel plot is just the same, and it's not satisfying because they didn't capitalize on ways to make him interesting. I do like the stuff with Oz and Oscar perhaps planning to weasel their way in, although they seem to have stepped on that immediately with shouting out at the meeting. I like Salem. Who would have thought? I really like Salem's flip on Cinder. Instead of making the same mistake of making Cinder her enemy again, she punished her like she expects, but then, no, I'm in the wrong here. I'll take that burden. I'll shoulder that. And, you can go take those powers and be, as powerful as I promised you, and capitalize on all those things, and get in Cinder's head and make her, more, compliant and less likely to rebel again. It's a good tactic switch to try and keep Cinder on side. I want to see what her response is to that when she's not in the whale, and when she's alone. The ending I like for moving things forward. I'm not crazy about what they did with the Grim River. It seems kind of out of left field and random. I do like that the whale is an Atlas now, and we're just doing this because, I was worried that it'd be waiting even later for that. We still have another episode for end of season, so I'm waiting for things to go, not end of season, end of mid-season, waiting for things to go crazy, so that could be cool. I do like that we're at that development already, so I'm willing to pass on the other stuff. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what the next episode is, because this is a pretty good cliffhanger, and they're going to definitely leave us on a cliffhanger for the mid-season, so I'm really curious to see with this setup what they can capitalize on next. The Penny thing's interesting because the Aesops didn't go get... they could maybe still go get her, I guess, but it's weird. At least the team has transport back to Mantle and Atlas now, so that's interesting. And Ruby and the gang are in Atlas, so that could be cool. We're not getting the raid on Schnee Manor, I guess, which is disappointing. That is another video of mine you can check out if you want. I think that's about it. Like I said, I knew this would be the longest one. I'm sorry if I mentioned my video too much. I didn't mean to, but it's a comparison point because I put a lot of thought into Cinder's backstory over the years, as so many people have. And then I sat down to write one and I got such good responses. And then I sat down to see this one and I saw it fall short in a few areas that I thought were easily capitalized on and easily fixed. And I don't think it nailed something people have been waiting years and years and years and years for. So... with that being said, thank you if you stuck with me through this long video. But yeah, we'll just go into the usual. Oh, I will say quickly, if you're here this long, people have asked me what I'm going to be doing mid-season. I've written out what I think I'm going to do, and I'll probably put out this video this week, not next week, so it'll probably be during the week this week. I'll put out like a channel update video to let you know what's happening over the break. Okay, so that aside, yeah, we'll just wrap it up. Like it if you like it, share it if you think others would like it. Let me know what you think in the comments below, because like I said, there's a lot to talk about in this one, so definitely let me know. And subscribe if you want to see more. Until next time, my name is Rigger. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope I did alright.